We found that platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok have really woven their way into our everyday lives. Like, this is us in social media. But the cracks are definitely starting to show. I've seen them. We've started to see an increase in people questioning their relationship with social media and technology. And especially with the TikTok ban, that really scared people and increased the dissatisfaction that a lot of people have with these social media companies. So I had to ask myself, is the age of social media finally coming to an end? What's up, YouTube? It's tinysey, and welcome to my digital garden. The average person spends about 2 hours and 31 minutes a day scrolling on social media, and that adds up to about 38 days out of the year just scrolling on your phone. I'm not even sure if people are having fun anymore, but a lot of Gen Z and millennials have grown up with social media, and so it's a go-to habit that a lot of us have. And honestly, in the beginning, it was mostly about connecting with friends and family and just catching up with them, seeing what they were up to. But it's definitely transformed to this monster of a thing. It's people's livelihoods. It's how we keep up with the news. It's how we stay up on the trends. It's how we entertain ourselves. It's how we learn. Like, literally everything can almost be solved by going on social media. But mostly it's become an attention economy where our minds are the product and our time is the currency. These platforms have totally dictated how we engage with information, entertain ourselves, and even connect with our friends and families. But recently the mood is definitely shifting, especially as we saw the government step in to ban the application TikTok. And we've also seen the government step in to regulate and censor applications like Meta. And so with this and a lot of other social media applications like Twitter becoming a more unbearable place to be, people are starting to question if this is really something that they want to give a lot of their time to. People that use these applications are starting to express the frustration that they have with the censorship, as well as just the silos that they end up being put in due to the algorithm and how it works. They're finding that the people on these applications aren't that kind, the algorithms aren't that great. I mean, TikTok's is pretty good, but that's an outlier and it seems to be shifting. You're bombarded with endless ads. I mean, TikTok has become so bad and it seriously affects people's mental health, and that has been shown through so many studies at this point. And social media is starting to feel less like a convenience and more like an addiction we can't shake. And as we've seen this transformation and growth of social media, we've seen third spaces become more abandoned. We've seen people lose real connections that they've had in real life in favor for online connections. And we've seen a decrease in people involved in real life communities and hobbies. And research also shows that Gen Z's top 2 hobbies are tech related, being gaming and social media. And so we've become really reliant on technology and social media for entertainment. But luckily it feels like people are starting to want their life and their brain back from the brain rot, and that includes me. And speaking of shifting habits, I've been thinking about ways to reconnect with my creativity outside of the digital chaos. And that's where Skillshare comes in. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and they offer thousands of classes on topics like design, animation, drawing, productivity, and more, you name it. It's a platform designed by creatives for creatives to help you explore your passions and grow your skills. For example, I've been interested in getting back into animation, and Skillshare's classes on tools like Procreate Dream have been an absolute lifesaver in getting back into my animation journey. And their learn by doing approach means that I can immediately apply what I learned by creating projects. I even can get feedback from a community of like-minded members. And one of my favorite features in Skillshare is that you can learn at your own pace. Because let's be honest, we're all busy, so being able to self-pace learning makes it way more convenient. The stackable lessons and curated learning paths makes it easy to dive into any topic that you are passionate about. So if you've been wanting to reignite an old hobby or even learn a new skill, now is the best time to do it. The first 500 people who use the link in my description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. So let's take that first step to making creativity and learning a regular practice in our lives. Thank you so much to our sponsor Skillshare, and back to the decline of social media. One thing that I've noticed when it comes to social media is that we are overly reliant on it, and that includes me. While social media started as a tool for connection, it became a catch-all. We'll go there for entertainment, education, and even validation. But we're seeing now that these apps aren't necessarily just created to help us connect. They're also engineered to keep us hooked, to keep us scrolling. It's very much similar to gambling. Every single scroll, especially on TikTok, you don't know what you're gonna get. And so you can just scroll and scroll and scroll for hours. Every notification after you post something can feel like a dopamine hit. And some of these platforms like TikTok have really perfected their algorithm in making it addictive. And with the talk of the TikTok ban, a lot of people were ready to put down the brain rot. This creator said, me while everyone's crying about TikTok being deleted, but I'm literally so addicted and not evolved enough to delete it myself. The ban would be doing what they didn't have the strength to do, which is delete the application and quit. The TikTok ban brought about a revelation for a lot of people that they are addicted and they have a problem and they need to fix it, or at least try and fix it. So we're coming to a place where our relationship with social media is beginning to change.
TikTok is ruining your mental health, and please let me tell you why. I know this is different from my typical content, but I just had to elaborate on this. It does fall under mental health, so I do think it's still health and wellness, so please bear with me. I genuinely feel like a lot of us are just so chronically on TikTok, on this app, and it's just not doing us any good. I feel like what's happening is that I'm in a phase of my life right now where I know, like, body-wise what I need to do to, like, be really healthy. I know, like, spiritually, like, my spiritual journey and being a Christian woman, what I do to constantly feed my spirit. But I'm realizing that stuff like us scrolling constantly, I think, is starting to really whittle away at my mental health at this point. Personally, I feel like TikTok can be the biggest thief of joy and thief of your self-confidence, a thief of kind of like taking your mind from what's actually going on in the real world and putting yourself in a phone world, a literally social media platform that has you comparing your life and making you feel like you're not good enough, like you're not in the life that you're supposed to be in. And I think what's happening, even though we have this amazing platform and we can use all these amazing things, you know, all these resources and everything like that, the other side is that you're seeing people's lives on a highlight reel, and I feel like everyone knows that, but it's hard to like really get that. I think we see like a life that we feel really jealous about, a life that we really want, and it takes us away from like what we can do in our day-to-day life to accomplish the things that genuinely drive us as a person and what will feed us, like, you know, spiritually, mentally, and like get us to our actual goal in life. We numb all of that by just sitting and watching people's highlight reels, sitting and watching people like describe how much money they're getting, doing all these side hustles, doing this A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Y, Z to become millionaires or to become financially stable or abundant or traveling the world. And while all those things are fantastic, and I think it's an amazing thing to have those as goals, I think what happens is that we get kind of lost in the sauce and we forget that, yes, you can pursue those things, but I think we just chronically will scroll and get really lost in that and won't do anything in our real life day to day to get to that point.
So I really felt the message that this creator was putting out, and I feel like this is what a lot of people are feeling and recognizing in themselves, that social media is stifling themselves from actually having that growth and seeing that growth in their real lives. A 2023 Pew Research study found that 64% of teens view social media as having a negative effect on people their age. This is on the UC Davis Health site. They found in 2020 that 44% of all internet users in the US said they've experienced online harassment. Cyberbullying is when someone repeatedly and intentionally harasses, mistreats, or makes fun of another person by way of an electronic device. It can severely impact self-esteem and mental health. And we've definitely seen a rise in cyberbullying or just mean behavior on social media. I've seen a few creators talk about this issue, and I definitely see it as well. It's also becoming a bit numbing, like we're getting used to it. Some people even find it funny, and it makes social media an unsafe place. This article talks about how there's a fear of missing out that plays a role into people's addiction. If everyone else is using social media sites, and if someone doesn't join in, there's concerns that they'll miss the joke, the connections, and the invitations. So missing experiences can create anxiety and depression, and when people look online and see they're excluded from an activity, it also can affect their thoughts and feelings and can affect them physically. And a 2018 British study tied social media use to decrease disrupted and delayed sleep, which is associated with depression, memory loss, and poor academic performance. So social media use can affect users' physical health even more directly. And I also found in my research that 45% of young adults experience some form of separation anxiety with their phone. So if they don't have their phone with them, they start to feel a certain type of way. So now we're at that place where people are able to recognize that social media is in fact having an effect on people, and there's enough research to actually see what it's doing to us. This also really reminded me of a trend that I saw last year, which was bed rotting. What does the term bed rotting actually mean? So it's an adjective relating to or engaged in the practice of spending many hours in bed during the day as a voluntary retreat from activity or stress. And a lot of the times I found that this involves scrolling on social media. They're on their fourth day in a row of rotting in bed with the exact same clothes on. She has her computer on her lap, she's watching the TV, and you just see that a lot of it involves scrolling mindlessly on social media. I feel like social media does enable people to take part in a lot of these things. And I am aware that sometimes bed rotting is something that is more associated with like severe depression. And in this video, I don't think that's the case. I've seen those videos, and oftentimes their whole room is just like, you know, it's in a state, let's just say it's in a very, very messy state. And you could tell that this is a more serious issue that they're having. But in a more casual sense of the way that this word is used, it feels like someone that is kind of just like relaxing for an extended amount of time. And they use social media and a lot of technology to enable this behavior in a sense. So this essentially is just a video of a girl. She's in her bed. She has a computer, or no, she has her laptop, her TV, an iPad. She has a Nintendo Switch. She has snacks. She is just set up to spend her day in bed. And the caption says, "Cold day. I don't even need to get up." And people in the comments said, "Bed rot final boss, my kind of bed rotting." And honestly, she really aestheticized the bed rotting. Looking at this video, it seems fun, it seems cozy. It's like, seems like a nice way to spend the day. But on the more negative side, this isn't necessarily the most healthy thing. Although it looks cute, it looks fun, it's not healthy. Bed rotting can be nice in like short periods of time. Maybe you're sick, maybe you actually just need to rest your body. But bed rotting becomes prolonged because of the access to technology and the convenience that it is to just be entertained where you are in a very sedentary manner. So this trend of bed rotting definitely became super prevalent last year, and I feel like oftentimes it was tied to social media. And so, not to say that social media caused it, but I definitely feel like if you're on your phone and you have your computer and you have your TV and you have all of this technology just enabling you to stay in bed, I don't think that this is going to have healthy outcomes on your life. And I think for all of these health reasons, this is a very concerning trend. And I think social media also is connected to a huge topic that we saw last year, which is third spaces. Third space can refer to a sociolinguistic theory, a social environment, or a space where people can relate to each other. I think this one is the most fitting definition. A social environment that's separate from home and work, where people can relate to each other. Examples of third spaces include churches, cafes, bars, clubs, libraries, gyms, bookstores, parks, and theaters. Even just hearing that list, so many of these things, even in my area, are disappearing. Theaters are closing down. The prices of going to the movie is probably also related. A lot of people have talked about how many third spaces require you to funnel some sort of money into it, and that's just not feasible, especially for the younger generation. You have churches, but we've also seen that Gen Z is not going to church at as high of a rate as previous generations have. If we look at cafes and bars, again, this costs money. There's also an age barrier. Clubs, same thing. We've seen the decline in clubbing culture and how no one's really dancing. People are going out, they're awkward, they're on their phone, they're standing on the wall, they're feeling self-conscious. I think a lot of this can tie back to the effects of social media. Comparing yourself to others, being self-conscious, feeling like someone might record you if you start dancing. Libraries, that is free. I think this is one of the few options that are still available and accessible to the younger generation, all ages, honestly. And I think it's a fun thing to do. And then also gyms, bookstores, and parks. And again, gyms have a price barrier, bookstores have a price barrier. Parks are free, but for the younger generation, going to a park to connect and meet people probably isn't the best place to do it. And so largely we're just seeing a disappearance of these third spaces that are free and or affordable, where you can meet and connect with like-minded individuals, make real life connections outside of social media. And the way I see it, a lot of people decided to turn their attention to social media when it started to boom and really grow. People said, this is more entertaining than going out, so I'm going to invest all of my excess time into going on social media. And what are the businesses going to do in response? They're going to say, well, it's time to start investing in tech. It's time to start making applications, social media, and all these sorts of things, because that's where people are going. So then you see things like Snapchat, Be Real, all these applications start to pop up instead of business owners investing into third spaces that people can congregate. So I do think social media plays a part into why a lot of third spaces are disappearing. This is why run clubs are becoming more popular again, where people have a common interest of running. They can meet people because people are so desperate for that connection. Without these clubs, without these ways of connecting, it makes people lonely, because yes, social media, you can connect with people, you could talk to people, Discord, all these sorts of things. Nothing beats real life connection. Meeting someone in person is a different experience than meeting and talking online. So I feel like social media is just having this run down, trickle down effect on everything else. Everything is just transported onto social media. In the past, people had a bit more drive to create these clubs around things that they enjoyed so that they can meet people together. There's things that people are doing and they're starting to create these clubs in real life. And I think this is also a sign that people are starting to turn away from social media. The rising popularity of run clubs, the rising popularity of these like get-togethers. I've seen meetups for exchanging blind boxes. Like, I've seen this culture really start to appear. And to me, that's a sign that people are starting to value in-person connection again and just having that face-to-face meeting instead of having a lot of these clubs being online and in your phone. And so I feel like these are the steps we need to be taking to release ourselves from our social media addiction. If you're interested in something and you're a part of a community online, taking those steps to create that community in real life with people in your area, because you never know, there might be people with the same interest right in your area that you can meet and become friends with. If we're truly heading towards the decline of social media, what are people going to do next? We heard similar sentiments when TikTok was going to be banned, but it was more so around what app was coming next. Are we going to go to Instagram? Are we going to go to Rednote? Like, where are people migrating to? And like I said, some people were like, we're migrating to real life, right? And other people were looking for that next app to replace the dopamine hit that was about to take place. And what I'm already seeing is a more intentional shift towards how people are consuming content. Things like newsletters, podcasts, long form content are starting to gain popularity, things like Substack as well. This is because it has something that social media doesn't, and that is depth and control at the same time. Instead of scrolling through an endless feed, people are opting for more meaningful and curated content. And so this might look like long form content like YouTube. This is very easy to walk away from. I don't often find myself binging YouTube, although it can happen. I feel like you can watch a video and easily walk away, and it's shifting more towards content that is more curated to what you are interested in. What's your personal interest? What's your personal passion? There's content for it that's more long form that will help you regain your attention span. We've also been seeing a rise in people interested in reading physical books. This is something that has been a bit aestheticized. We've seen people like Addison Rae walking outside with the Britney Spears autobiography, and people said it was very performative, but ultimately I think it has not started a trend, but has been a part of a trend of people being outside in the open, reading a book. Reading is kind of becoming this status symbol that's differentiating you from being someone that's into the brain rot into being an intellectual. And that is starting to become a social currency. And I think this creator speaks on this trend very well.
I think not having an online presence will be one of the biggest signifiers of wealth and somebody's socioeconomic standing over the next couple of years. We're already starting to see signs of this, but two recent news articles or things that I've heard recently really have sparked that. One was a recent thing that I heard on NPR a couple of days ago, where it was talking about how a lot of legacy media outlets outlets that previously dropped their print media are now slowly coming back, albeit in still a very reduced form, but they are coming back because they have recognized that advertisers love print media. The news clip talked about how, back in the day, people would clip advertisements because there was a beauty and there was an intentionality behind it. And I think we see that today on TikTok, where people will, flip through a 2001 Target ad because there was some creativity and originality built into it, but rest assured, it's still capitalism. And the reason why I feel like this will be a high status symbol is the news clip talked about how advertisers particularly love this form of media because high income earners are the ones typically flipping through it. Second thing that I just read today was a Caitlin Tiffany article from The Atlantic where she talked about how she went to essentially like a deprogramming, a reclaiming of your attention. But this was a 6-week course that she took in Brooklyn. The course cost $600. And the gist of the course was essentially just like how to not be on your phone, how to reclaim your attention. The average person cannot pay $600 to attend a 6-week course to learn how to not be addicted to their phone. And I know that those are just very two small examples, but I really do think that we will see over the coming years this shift away from social media and being online, because nobody wants to be here. Nobody wants to be here, but we feel like we need to be. And I don't want to be here. You probably don't want to be here. More and more people will be leaving this current iteration of the internet, and I'm here for it.
So yes, I really love that video because it encompasses the trend that I am talking about. It's more of a status symbol now to be able to say like, you're completely offline. I don't have any social media accounts, right? Like I have these in-person hobbies. I read, I go to the gym. Maybe I go to a run club. That's starting to become cool. And while I don't necessarily like that it's wrapped up in being cool, because it should be more about it being healthier, but it's a step in the right direction. And I think that if you make reading cool, if you make being offline cool, I think they'll have a really good effect on the younger generation, because we see how low literacy rates are. They don't know how to read. Parents are complaining. Teachers are complaining. They don't know what to do. And I think that if it becomes cool again, hopefully that does have a positive effect on the younger generation. And tied to this is also a trend of digital minimalism. That's people being offline, having less social media accounts. And instead of this, they'll focus on real life connections and hobbies that they have. It might sound radical, and I feel like it sounded radical to me as well, but it's become increasingly more enticing as we see the effects of social media and a lot of technology, especially where we're at in the world where social media feels more like a burden than a benefit. People are also setting app timers so you can put a limit to how much you can scroll on a particular app. People are having phone-free dinners. Some people delete their social media apps for the weekend. People also have offline hours. So people are finding all these ways to be more mindful of how they consume social media and technology. We're moving towards a model where we use these things as tools rather than letting these tools use us. And I don't think people will stop using social media. They might just move to platforms like YouTube, like Substack, these places where content is easier to walk away from. So personally, I feel like we need to be more mindful of how we consume technology, eventually getting to that place where you have more control of your social media consumption. And this can be setting those app timers. Also, a very big one is identifying your triggers, figuring out what it is that makes you reach for the application. Ultimately, I hope that we find some offline alternatives to social media. And I feel like going back to these forms of entertainment might be what we need to do in order to take control of our life again. So I feel like the end of mindless social media consumption is definitely coming to us quickly. But it's not going to be because platforms are dying. I think it's because we're finally starting to realize the effects that these applications have on us. So we're going to see a shift towards people reclaiming their lives, attention, and ultimately their lives. What role does social media play in your life? Are you on the more addicted side? Have you ever thought of putting social media down? I definitely have, and I think that's a goal for me this year, to take part in more in-person hobbies and stop using social media as a coping mechanism. But what do you guys think about this topic? If you've made it this far in the video, please post the lightning bolt emoji. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video essay.